In the year 1218, two empires, like titans, stood on the brink of a world-altering conflict. In the west, the Khwarazmian Empire, a dazzling hub of commerce and culture, shimmered with the wealth of Persia and Central Asia. To the east, a storm was brewing on the steppes, a new, unstoppable force led by a name that would echo through history: Genghis Khan. The world was about to change, and the spark that lit the flame was a single ill-fated caravan. 500 Mongol merchants arrive at the Khwarazmian border city of Otrar. Their camels are heavy with silk, jade, and silver. They've come peacefully, hoping for trade and friendship. But the city's governor, a man named Inalchuk, saw them not as merchants, but as spies. Whether it was suspicion or simple greed, his decision was catastrophic. He seized their goods and had every single one of them put to death. This wasn't just a robbery, it was an act of war. When news of this massacre reached Genghis Khan, his response was cold, calculated, and deadly. He didn't immediately call for war. Instead, he sent a diplomatic mission, 2 Mongols and a Muslim envoy, to the Khwarazmian ruler, Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II. The demand was simple: hand over Governor Inalchuk for justice. But the Shah, blinded by his own power and arrogance, made a fatal error. He executed one of the envoys and, in a profound act of humiliation, shaved the beards of the other 2 and sent them back. In that moment, the door to diplomacy wasn't just closed, it was slammed shut and bolted. The blood spilled in Otrar demanded retribution, and the Mongols, they were coming to collect. In the autumn of 1219, a silence fell over Central Asia as the world held its breath. Genghis Khan, leading his disciplined, battle-hardened army, crossed the border. This wasn't a raid for riches. This was a campaign of pure, unadulterated vengeance. The Mongol horde descended upon the Khwarazmian lands like a storm of steel and thunder. Their first target, Otrar, the very city where it all began. For 5 long, grueling months, Otrar resisted. But Mongol siege warfare was a science of destruction, and it was unmatched. When the city's walls finally crumbled, it was reduced to nothing but rubble and ash. And for Governor Inalchuk, a special fate awaited. The chronicles tell us that molten silver was poured into his eyes and ears, a horrifyingly poetic justice for his greed. With Otrar obliterated, the Mongol storm rolled on towards Bukhara, one of the shining jewels of the Islamic world. It was a city of scholars, magnificent mosques, and libraries filled with ancient knowledge. The Mongols expected a fierce battle, but what they found was a city paralyzed by fear. The gates opened without a fight. Genghis Khan himself rode into the city's grand mosque, and before the trembling citizens, he delivered a chilling proclamation. "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." The message was terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just an invasion, it was divine wrath made flesh. Bukhara was plundered, its priceless treasures looted, and its famous libraries were set ablaze, turning centuries of human knowledge into smoke and ash. And still, the storm wasn't over. Next in its path was Samarkand, the glorious capital of the Shah. It was a fortress city of stone and pride, defended, so it was said, by 40,000 soldiers and 20 war elephants. But no wall, no matter how high, could stop the wind of fear that preceded the Mongols. As they approached, panic fractured the city's defenses. Commanders argued, loyalties dissolved. Many of the Turkic defenders, hoping for mercy, defected to the Mongol side. It was a fatal mistake. The great city of Samarkand, the pride of Central Asia, fell in just 5 days. Its glory was extinguished, its population decimated. Yet one city dared to make a final defiant stand: Urgench. It was rich, proud, and its people were determined to fight to the very last man. Here, the Mongols faced their fiercest resistance. The siege became a brutal, grinding battle fought street by street, house by house. Every alleyway was a killing ground. When the city finally, inevitably fell, The Mongol vengeance was absolute and terrifying. They broke the dams of the Amu Darya River, deliberately flooding what little remained of the city, literally erasing Urgench from the map. The death toll was staggering, with tens, perhaps hundreds of thousands lost. The Khwarazmian heartland was now a smoldering ruin. And what of the Shah, the man whose pride had unleashed this apocalypse? Ala ad-Din Muhammad II did not make a heroic stand. He fled. Pursued relentlessly by Genghis Khan's two greatest generals, Jebe and Subutai, the Shah ran for his life. He was a king without a kingdom, a fugitive haunted by the ghost of his own arrogance. He fled across mountains and deserts, through snow and sand, until finally, in the winter of 1220, he found himself on a lonely, desolate island in the Caspian Sea. There, he died, sick, broken, and utterly alone. The vast empire he had once ruled with such contemptuous pride was gone. But from the ashes of this fallen empire, a single spark of defiance flickered to life. The Shah's son, Jalal ad-Din, rose to lead the survivors. He was everything his father was not: brave, a brilliant military tactician, and absolutely unyielding. Against all odds, Jalal ad-Din rallied the shattered remnants of his army and struck back. At the Battle of Parwan, he achieved the unthinkable. He defeated a Mongol force. For the first time in this campaign, the invincible Mongols had been beaten. News of this defeat even caught the attention of Genghis Khan himself. But this victory, as heroic as it was fleeting. The great Khan would not be denied his total victory. He marched to face this upstart prince in person. At the Battle of the Indus River, Jalal ad-Din fought with incredible valor, but his outnumbered army was ultimately crushed by the full might of the Mongol horde. In a final legendary act of defiance, with his back to the river and nowhere left to run, Jalal ad-Din spurred his horse off a cliff, plunging into the roaring waters below, and miraculously swam to safety on the other side, in India. He had escaped, but his empire had not. In just 2 short years, the Khwarazmian Empire, once the jewel of Central Asia, had been utterly and completely wiped from the map. Cities that had stood for centuries were gone. The bustling trade routes of the Silk Road fell silent. The very fabric of the Islamic world was torn apart in one of the most brutal conquests in history. But for Genghis Khan and his Mongols, this was not an ending. It was just the beginning. The road to Persia, to Baghdad, and eventually to the very gates of Europe, now lay wide open. The arrogance of one ruler had turned a diplomatic insult into a global catastrophe, and from its ashes, the world witnessed the birth of a new and terrifying order, one forged in conquest, fear, and the unshakable will of the Mongol Empire. The Mongols had arrived, and history would never be the same again. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the epic sagas of history. We'll see you next time.